It was a cold, foggy evening in London when Inspector Harold Grayson received an urgent message. The note, written in elegant cursive, simply read, "Come at once. The barrister is dead. Mrs. Eleanor Whittaker." Grayson adjusted his coat, grabbed his hat, and hurried to the address scribbled at the bottom of the note. The barrister in question was none other than Sir Reginald Whittaker, a respected lawyer known for his sharp mind and impeccable reputation. His sudden death was shocking, but what puzzled Grayson even more was the tone of the note. It wasn't grief-stricken, it was urgent, almost frantic. When Grayson arrived at the Whittaker residence, a grand Victorian house on the outskirts of the city, he was greeted by Mrs. Eleanor Whittaker, a woman in her late 40s with an air of quiet elegance. Her eyes, however, betrayed her calm demeanor. They were filled with fear. "Thank you for coming, Inspector," she said, her voice trembling. "I fear my husband's death was not natural." Grayson raised an eyebrow. "What makes you say that, Mrs. Whittaker?" She led him to the study, where Sir Reginald's body lay slumped over his desk. A half-empty glass of brandy sat beside him, and a faint smell of almonds lingered in the air. Grayson's instincts kicked in immediately. Keen-eyed. He was working late, as he often did, Mrs. Whittaker explained. "I brought him his brandy, as I always do, and left him to his work. When I returned an hour later, he was like this." Grayson examined the room carefully. The desk was tidy, with no signs of a struggle. The windows were locked from the inside, and the door had been closed when he arrived. It seemed like a classic case of poisoning, but something didn't add up. "Did anyone else enter the study after you brought him the brandy?" Grayson asked. Mrs. Whittaker hesitated. "No, but there's something you should know. My husband had been acting strangely lately. He received a letter a week ago, and ever since, he's been different. He wouldn't tell me what it was about, but I could tell it troubled him deeply." Grayson's curiosity was piqued. "Do you still have the letter?" She shook her head. "He burned it. But I remember one thing, it was signed with the initials, G." The inspector spent the next few hours questioning the household staff. The butler, a man named Thomas, confirmed that no one had entered or left the study after Mrs. Whittaker. The maid, however, mentioned something peculiar. "I saw a man lurking near the house earlier today," she said nervously. He was tall, with a scar on his left cheek. "I didn't think much of it at the time, but now—" Grayson's mind raced. A mysterious letter, a stranger lurking nearby, and a barrister with secrets. This was no ordinary case. The next morning, Grayson visited Sir Reginald's law firm. He spoke to the senior partner, Mr. Charles Pembroke, who revealed something startling. "Reginald had been working on a highly sensitive case," Pembroke said, lowering his voice. "It involved a wealthy client who was accused of embezzlement. The client's name was James Blackwood." Grayson's eyes widened. "James Blackwood. J.B." Pembroke nodded. Blackwood was furious when Reginald refused to tamper with the evidence. He threatened him, but Reginald stood his ground. "I never thought he'd go this far." Armed with this new information, Grayson tracked down James Blackwood. The man was indeed tall, with a scar on his left cheek. When confronted, Blackwood denied any involvement in Sir Reginald's death, but his nervous demeanor told a different story. "I had nothing to do with it," Blackwood insisted. "Yes, I was angry, but I would never kill him." Grayson wasn't convinced. He returned to the Whittaker residence to search for more clues. This time, he noticed something he had missed before a small, hidden compartment in Sir Reginald's desk. Inside was a diary. The diary contained detailed notes about the Blackwood case, including evidence of his guilt. But the most shocking entry was dated the day before Sir Reginald's death. J.B. has threatened me. I fear for my life. If anything happens to me, the truth must come out. Grayson knew he had his man. He arrested James Blackwood, who eventually confessed to poisoning Sir Reginald's brandy in a desperate attempt to silence him. As the case closed, Grayson couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Sir Reginald's secret had cost him his life, but it had also exposed the truth. In the world of classic detective mysteries, justice was always served, but not without a price. And so, the fog lifted over London, but the shadows of the barrister's secret lingered on.